Great. Well, thank you for joining our third Hazard Mitigation Committee meeting. We appreciate your participation, and this is really helping to ensure that the Hazard Mitigation Plan update addresses all of the unique needs and concerns of your community. So it's a huge help to have you all here. A few more people popping in. Anna, could you hop to the next slide?
Sure can.
And then we can jump to the one after this. So my name's Lindsay Adams. I've met a lot of you already, but for anyone who's new, on the call with us today, we have Jeannie Lewis, we have Kayla Pell, Anna Kimmelblatt. We're all from Weston and Sampson. We also have Elaine Browning, who was not able to join us today, but she has been at previous meetings, so some of you may have met her. She's your Regional Hazard Mitigation Planner from GMA. So she is a great resource for you all, and she will most likely be joining in future meetings, so you get a chance to meet and talk with her. Next slide. So we sent you 2 documents yesterday. We sent you an agenda for this meeting and also goals and objectives crosswalk. So we're going to spend some time today talking about the crosswalk. We'll be presenting it on the screen, but it may also be helpful for you all to pull it up on your desktop. It's in Excel, so it might help to be able to pan around, view the information, larger text, just in a format that works better for you. If you can't find the files or you didn't receive that email, I'm going to throw a link into the chat right now. And this link will take you to the Google Drive that you've probably seen before. We've been working in it before. And this contains all of the documents that we're updating together. So that link is in there. I'm going to give a quick recap of hazard mitigation planning just as a refresher and for anybody who's new today and hasn't heard this before. While I'm doing that, if you want to just get those files open so that you have them on your computer for when we talk about the goals and objectives in a little bit. Next slide. Just some quick logistics. So we're going to be presenting today, but we also want to hear your thoughts and questions. So let us know as you go. At any point during this conversation, if you have something you want to say or you have a question, you can either unmute yourself or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. We'll also be monitoring the chat, so feel free to throw any questions or comments into the chat and we'll address them as we go. All right, so just a quick recap of hazard mitigation planning. In creating a hazard mitigation plan, the goal for a community is to reduce the impact of future disaster on both people and property. This is done by proactively taking measures to prevent or lessen the impact of natural and man-made hazards. These efforts really pay off, and it's been shown by FEMA that for every dollar spent on mitigation, a community will save on average $6 on disaster recovery. Next slide. By keeping your hazard mitigation plan up to date, Effingham County is eligible for FEMA funding. So there's a lot of programs that you can receive funding from, including the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program, Pre-Disaster Mitigation, Flood Mitigation Assistance, the BRIC grant, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, Public Assistance Grant Program, Community Development Block Grant, and buyout programs. So there are a lot of different programs that you can receive funding from just by keeping your plan up to date. And next slide. So at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, we reviewed the various hazards that impact Effingham County. We discussed hazard frequencies. We talked about additional hazards that we wanted to include in your plan. We looked at previous federal disaster declarations, and we also reviewed the goals and objectives that were included in your 2017 to 2022 plan. We then looked at some revised goals, and we reviewed and confirmed the goals that will be included in your 2023 to 2028 plan. So in just a minute, Anna is going to walk us through the revised goals and objectives, and she's going to talk about how those align with your mitigation actions from your 2017 plan. But first, before she gets into that, I just want to take a pause for a minute, and if there are any questions or comments from the group, feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and let us know.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Hope everything's good with you. I'll let you back to it.
I don't see anything in the chat and I do not hear anything. So we're going to continue on.
Okay, before we jump into reviewing the revised goals and objectives, let's talk just a little bit about what goals and objectives really are. Goals are the ultimate aim, the final state that we want to achieve. It's sort of an overarching umbrella statement. And here for us, really, the goal in hazard mitigation planning is ultimately public safety. Objectives are, you can think of them about as pieces of a goal. They're a bit more specific. They're broken down into smaller, achievable targets. And then the last piece we have would be action items. So action items are implementable projects or the actual plans, the actions that you're taking to achieve these objectives and goals. So how are you chipping away at your objectives and goals? What actions are you taking? Keeping all that in mind, let's review the revised goals that we got into a little bit last week, and we will go into much more detail about today. So these are the previous goals from your 2017 to 2022 hazard mitigation plan, which have evolved into a new set of goals. The previous set of goals was fairly hazard specific. The new goals, we wanted to be a bit more generalized and expand on different concepts that all ultimately promote public safety. The revised goals encompass the goals from the 2017 plan. So we want to make sure that you know that no goal or concept has been lost with the revision. And we'll run through these 2023 to 2028 goals now. Minimize loss of life and property from impacts of hazards. Improve education and outreach efforts to protect community assets and critical facilities from hazards. Increase coordination and capabilities to plan and implement projects to minimize loss from hazards. Improve data collection, dissemination, and redundancy to reduce impacts from hazards. So you can see that the new goals that have been revised sort of grow from the 2017 to 2022 goals. And they encompass all hazards. We've also revised the set of objectives. So again, no concept or idea has been lost here. The revised objectives have grown and evolved from the previous goals and objectives of the 2017 to 2022 plan. So in this table, you can see the revised goals on the left that we just went through. Oops. In the middle, we have the revised objectives. I won't read them all to you, but the point that we want to drive home with this slide is that here in this column, we have the previous goals and objectives, and we're showing you here how they all fit within the new plan. So previous objective 3.5 has been encompassed into new objective 1.3. And we'll go through a couple examples of this on the next slide. So previous objective 1.1 was to protect Effingham residents from high winds caused by severe winter storms, thunderstorms, and hurricanes. That has been enveloped in new goal 1 and new objective 1.1, minimize loss of life and property from impacts of hazards, and retrofit or otherwise protect critical facilities, community assets, and infrastructure. A second example down below, previous objective 6.3, protect human life, health, and property of residents from contaminants in the waterways. That has been evolved into new goal 1 and new objective 1.3, minimize loss of life and property from impacts of hazards, and protect natural and environmentally beneficial resources like clean water. So you can sort of see how these previous objectives fit within these new objectives, and the new objective and the new goals are a little bit more all-encompassing. So now let's add some action items into it. I'm going to switch over to the spreadsheet that was sent out prior to the meeting. So here on the left-hand side, we have the 2023 revised goals that we went through. Here's the 4 goals. This spreadsheet is color-coded by goal. In the next column, we have the new objectives, the revised objectives. We have again here the 2017 to 2022 objectives showing how they've been encompassed within the new objectives. And then we have all of your action items that were previously listed in the 2017 to 2022 plan. You had about 90 action items, and all of them fit within a new objective. So we have gone ahead and classified them all as we found them to be appropriate. Um, we want to give you a small little homework assignment, and that would be to go through this spreadsheet pretty thoroughly and see if you agree with where we've placed each action item. This is a good place to see how the revised goals are really pretty all-encompassing, minimize loss of life and property from impacts of hazards. We get a little bit more specific in our objectives. For example, expand outreach methods to reach more audiences. And then we get even more specific with our action items. And these are actual actions that you guys are taking to achieve these objectives, like annually host a public hazards workshop or expo, post lightning warning signs at local parks. So you can see how it's sort of an umbrella method here that we've classified each action item under each objective. So what we want you to do is take the time to go through this and see if you agree with where we've placed each action item. However, it's easiest for you to provide feedback is fine with us. If you want to come prepared next week to discuss your proposed changes, or if you found an action item that you disagree with in its location, please come prepared at the next meeting to talk about that. If it's easier for you to actually annotate the spreadsheet, write on it, move things around, feel free to do that. You have the Excel sheet, and then you can send it back to one of us with your proposed changes on it too. I'd be happy to look over a revised spreadsheet in that way as well. Let's jump back over to the PowerPoint. So this is just, again, for next time, please review that spreadsheet and come prepared to chat about any proposed changes. The other thing we want you to do for next time is to start brainstorming together new action items for the next meeting. We want to brainstorm new action items, new mitigation methods that you guys want to encompass to start utilizing and implementing to achieve your goals and objectives. Just to get the ball rolling, to get the brain juices flowing, I think it's best to think about project categories like this. There's sort of 6 broad categories here: natural and beneficial functions of floodplains, emergency services, preventative actions, structural projects, property protection. Let's go back. Does anybody have any questions about goals, objectives, action items, or the spreadsheet?
Anna, you faded out during that slide, so maybe just go back and reiterate it if you don't mind so that we can hear it, what all you said.
This slide, project
Yeah.
categories?
Yeah.
Okay. For next time, we want you to start thinking about mitigation actions that are new, that are not included in your old plan. And we want you to think about them in these categories. These categories are sort of broad, but they're a good way to organize your thoughts. Those categories are natural and beneficial functions of floodplains, emergency services, preventative actions, structural projects, property protection, and public information and education. So any questions about goals or objectives or how we've come up with the revised goals or any input at all about that?
Did anyone have a chance to look over the spreadsheets that were emailed last night? If you didn't have a chance, we might be running a little faster today with our slide presentation, and so we might be able to just jump in and talk about some of that now. But I'm just curious if anyone had a chance to look over. I think last time we were imagining the goals collapsed into the 4 categories, and we didn't have a chance to see them. So this is our first chance to actually see the goals condensed. Anyone have a chance to look at that from yesterday? That helps us know, like, not to expect anyone jumping right in. Teresa, could you just test your mic to make sure we're okay? Like no technical difficulties either?
I'm here.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I
We're
was not able
apparently
to
having-
look at that email yesterday, so this is the first time I'm looking at the attachment.
Great, okay, perfect.
Awesome. Well, hopefully before the next meeting, y'all will get a chance to look it over and provide us with some feedback about where we've classified all of these action items. All right, we'll switch gears just a little bit. And something we wanted to chat about today was the community rating system program. So we're just going to do a brief overview on what is CRS, how does it work, what are the benefits, and your current status. So the community rating system is a voluntary incentive program that rewards communities that exceed the minimum requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program. In other words, it rewards communities who go above and beyond in their floodplain management programs. Effingham County and just the unincorporated areas has 751 insurance policies as of 2021. So that's a pretty significant number. And again, that does not include Guyton, Rankin, or Springfield policies. There's 3 goals of the CRS program: reduce and avoid flood damage to insurable property, strengthen and support the insurance aspects of the NFIP, and foster a comprehensive floodplain management. So essentially, and just to back up for a minute, Effingham County, again, has 751 insurance policies as of 2021. And that's important to note. So as a reminder, if your home is in the FEMA designated special flood hazard area and you have a federally backed mortgage, you must maintain a flood insurance policy. And I'll jump over to this map really quick, just to show you these blue areas that you can see on this map. Here's the city of Guyton. Here's some unincorporated areas. These blue areas represent the special flood hazard area. So you can see that Effingham County has a decent amount of special flood hazard area within it. And therefore, probably a few policies in the cities of Guyton, Rankin, and Springfield who do not currently participate in the community rating system program. Effingham is currently a class 7, and we'll get into what that means. But I just wanted you all to see that the special flood hazard area is definitely present within y'all's region. So how does the CRS program work? How do they provide these rewards? The rewards come in the form of a discount on flood insurance premiums for citizens in the community. So CRS has 19 creditable activities, and these activities are grouped into 4 categories: public information, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction, and warning and response. So within those 19 creditable activities, the more activities you implement or do or carry out, the more points that you score. And as you score points, you move up in the class ranking system. So right now, Effingham County is a class 7, which is awesome. So they're providing a 15% discount to their citizens on their flood insurance premiums. The more activities you implement, you'll move up to a 6, and then you'll be providing them, a 20% discount on their flood insurance premiums. The difference between these 2 columns here is that this is the premium reduction for someone who is living within the special flood hazard area. Here, this is someone who might be living in a non-SFHA area. So they're not required to have a policy, but they still get a discount So they're getting a reward for maintaining a policy, even though they're not required to. So that's how the community rating system works. And these lower cost flood insurance rates are really only one benefit of the program. Other benefits include enhanced public safety, enhanced public education, reduced damage to property and public infrastructure, and the incentive to maintain and improve a community's floodplain management program in general. So there's a lot of benefits to participating in the community rating system and improving your classification in the community rating system. Like I said, Effingham County has that 751 insurance policies. So even a small discount, even 5%, can really make a difference and a big impact, especially for lower income members of the community who might be required to maintain a flood insurance policy. There's a lot of overlap between the community rating system and hazard mitigation planning. You can score points by having a hazard mitigation plan that meets certain community rating system criteria. So I'd like you to sort of think about these questions, identify maybe who might be the person who coordinates your CRS program. For Guyton, Rankin, and Springfield, if you were to join, who would that person be? Um, and for Effingham County, what are your goals regarding the CRS program, and how can we better use your hazard mitigation plan to contribute to those goals? Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about the community rating system program?
As a way of quick background, um, Anna joins us from Charleston County floodplain management and has been very successful in improving CRS program for Charleston County residents. And so we would like to be working on that with you to think about those actions and land uses and things that we can do to help improve that cost. So we've got her benefit of her experience with Charleston County. So we would like to be able to apply that to help Effingham as well.
Thanks, Jeannie. To give you a little context about Charleston County has worked its way up from a class 10 recently all the way up to a class 2. So in Charleston County, they're saving 40% on their flood insurance premiums now for all citizens in that community. So jumping from a class 3, which we were last year, up to a class 2. As a class 3, we were saving about $4.3 million for the community. As a class 2, will save the community about $5.7 million. So the CRS program can really have a big impact.
This is Teresa. Yeah, so we're class 7 and we are maintaining that with recertification each year. There are, at this time, there's no particular plans to improve that. We would like to improve that classification. There's just at this time not a CFM on staff, not the staffing to branch out and gain points in other areas. I know there's some overlap with the hazard mitigation plan. And if we can, use your experience to help configure goals in here that will help us, with CRS, that would be great. We're just kind of maintaining at this time until we can, get the CFM, either a staff member, earn that credential or hire someone with that credential so that we can, move forward.
Definitely.
Yeah, Teresa, that might be even something we could, and Clint, that might be something that we could do like a small group on to like start digging in a little bit more. Anna, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think that creating a small planning team with a representative sort of from each department would be really beneficial in determining some future goals for both the hazard mitigation plan and the community rating system program. CRS is pretty nitpicky about who's at the table. They like to have a representative from planning, a representative from the building department, a representative from emergency management, and a representative from public works. So it's important, I think, to find sort of a representative or someone who can speak on behalf of their department and come together and sit at the table and think about some of these things.
Great. Let's talk about pursuing that.
Yeah, we've been notified that we're going to get a community visit. So we have a meeting with FEMA scheduled for March 16th. And before that, we're going to be meeting as staff, and the departments you mentioned are exactly the departments that are going to be coming together to discuss their request for information, to prepare for the CAV. So we're kind of coincidentally on that same track right now. I don't know that we'll be able to expand our staff, get-togethers to include a look forward into what we can, do to improve our classification, but that group's going to be convened pretty soon.
Oh, great. Is that something that Teresa, you could extend an invite and we can either Anna and me or Lindsay, we could join in and maybe put our heads together on that?
Well, I mean, the preliminary meetings this is the first CAV any of us have been through. We have to figure out how to
Yeah.
respond to the request for information because we currently don't even know exactly how to respond to it. So
Yeah.
we're going to, get in our one of our review engineers who's been helping us and the team, from the departments you mentioned, and just kind of go from there. But as once we stabilize, sure, that would be a great group to communicate, to coordinate with you guys.
Great.
Yeah,
Anna, have you been sitting in on any Charleston County visit, like a direct FEMA visit?
Oh, yes, I just did one in September, a big one. So those calves are documentation heavy. I know that for sure. But it would be really great for us, especially after you go through this CAV, if we can, look at how you scored in some of the hazard mitigation planning sections. We could parse out some long-term goals that could really be mutually beneficial, I think, to both the hazard mitigation plan and your CRS rating. So it'd be awesome to meet with you guys about that after you get on your feet and figure out your path forward with the CAV.
Great. Thank you.
So if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to flip it back over to Lindsay, who's going to talk about the timeline a little bit.
And I'm actually, since we have a bit of time, I'm going to hold off on doing the timeline right now, and we're going to jump back into something that a lot of you are probably going to be familiar with if you were at an earlier meeting. We're going to continue going through the mitigation measures that were in your previous plan. So I'm going to share my screen and so we also have a link that I just added into the chat. So for those who may not have been at this past meeting, which I think was the first meeting that we had in the beginning of January, we started to look through your actions that were listed in your previous plan. So these are all of the 90 actions, which Anna had touched on a little bit. And these are all the actions that were included in your last plan. So what we have to do now is we have to go through and look at each of them and make a decision on whether these actions are deferred, if they're ongoing, whether they're completed, or if they're actions that you just want to delete from the plan. And we went through, you can see this is the column that we're going to be filling out of the 2023 status. So we got through a fair amount of them. And we're going to jump in right here and just keep going through. Before I hop into this, did anyone have any questions or comments on anything that we presented on earlier before we sort of switch gears to start talking about these actions? Okay, so this is going to require a little bit of feedback from you all. So I'm going to read the action, and if you want to just unmute yourself, raise your hand, throw in the chat your reaction to this action that I'm going to be reading off. So we'll need feedback on each of them. So if it's something that you have a bit more information on, or you even just have a little bit of information that you want to provide, then anything will help. So we're going to start off with this first one. Encourage subdivision requirements to place all utility lines underground. Sorry. I think oh, yep. Okay, yeah, that was the first one. So in your 2017 plan, that was listed as ongoing. So for your updated plan, what is the status that you want to keep this action as? Do you want to continue with ongoing? Is it completed, deleted, deferred?
I think this needs to remain as ongoing. As additional developments progress in the county, we want to continue that encouragement.
This is Teresa. And so on that note, I'm sorry, someone came into my office. On that note, we're actually in the process, we're about to launch our subdivision revision, and we're meeting tomorrow with our consultants. So again, is there any particular kind of model language, or just include, discussion of requirement to place utilities underground? Is it as simple as just adding a sentence or clarifying what might already be there?
Jeannie, do you have a good answer to this? Your sound might not be working. I can definitely follow up with you, and we have helped with some updates, regulation updates. Oh, she's having trouble unmuting. So we have helped with those in the past. I would have to look into that a little bit more to see what type of text we really included, but yeah, so that can be a follow-up email that Jeannie or I can send you if we have any more feedback on that.
Okay.
So the next one we have is annually host a public hazard workshop or exposition for all residents. This was new as of 2017. I remember having an earlier one where we talked a little bit about events like this being shut down due to COVID, and some of the previous public engagement events that we talked about, we added as ongoing. And I think Clint had microphone issues. So Clint, if you have any comments on any of this, you can just throw it into the chat and we'll add it into the spreadsheet.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think I got that resolved.
So the hosting a public hazard workshop or exposition would you like to keep that one as ongoing as you're kind of starting to get back into doing more workshops like this post-COVID?
I think we need to keep that as ongoing.
Create a speakers bureau for disaster-related topics that focus on mitigation and preparedness measures. Do a pre-hurricane meeting.
Okay, this is ongoing. This is something that we did pre-COVID, but it wasn't just for our county. We did our Quad County area: Liberty, Bryan, Chapman, Effingham.
All right. Next up, we have draft plan for countywide drainage network and improvement program.
Teresa
deferred
can
and
verify.
Teresa.
I believe this is actually ongoing, if not close to being completed.
The county is currently working with a consultant. This came from Kristen. Yeah, the county is currently working with a consultant on their stormwater master plan and CIP project development. So this would be ongoing. Seek funding to improve the functioning of runoff and water retention ditches.
Is my microphone working yet?
Yours says, yep, we can hear
Oh,
you.
great. Okay. Thank you. Little it's just going on and off, but that one on drainage is probably the most common problem we have with flooding is this, even like the maintenance of drainage areas. I think we talked about that a little in the first meeting. That one might be, I know we have that as ongoing. Let's see, we have it as ongoing. I
Yeah.
think that one's really, like, that one's pretty important.
Yeah, so somebody threw that in the chat, that this would be ongoing and that they are seeking funding.
Great. I think that was Mark. Right?
Yep, yeah, it was. Next up, we have continue to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program to protect existing and new developments, to ensure new buildings and infrastructure that are not in harm's way, and to ensure continued compliance with NFIP requirements.
Yes, that is ongoing.
Let's see, develop drainage and stormwater management program. We have the stormwater master plan up here. Does this action kind of go along with the previous one we talked about, draft a plan for countywide drainage network and improvement program, and that the county is currently working with a consultant on their stormwater master plan and CIP project?
It seems logical to me,
Yeah.
looking at it, but
Yeah, I would say so, that they go together.
Okay. Require more trees be preserved and planted in landscape designs to reduce the amount of stormwater runoff.
And again, with the subdivision regs, we can clarify, we were going to work on including any state model ordinances, Georgia Forestry Commission model ordinances for tree protection or retention of trees. So we're definitely looking at trees when we work on the subdivision regs.
Okay. Encourage homeowners to install backflow valves to prevent reverse flow flood damages. This was new in 2017. Has there been any update on this? Is it something that we want to continue into the next plan?
I don't know anything about that. I'm not sure what department that came out of.
Looks like Mark says this one's ongoing.
okay, good.
Install backup generators for pumping and lift stations.
Yes, this is ongoing.
Flood-proof existing lift stations located in flood hazard areas. Raise electrical components above base flood elevation.
Yep, this is ongoing as well.
Install backup gen. Is this the same?
Yeah, essentially that's very similar, but it's ongoing as well.
Okay. Install, reroute, or increase the capacity of a storm drainage system.
That's got to be with the other stormwater master planning. I think
Yeah,
we could probably
ongoing. Same
Yeah.
comment, ongoing,
So
yeah.
Lindsay, I would think that those actions, those 3 actions we might flag for a way to make sure we're covering all 3 of them in one language that's crafted. Is that sound about
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and our next meeting, we're gonna be beginning to develop new actions. So part of that is that, so we'll be developing new actions and then prioritizing all of the actions. So the old ones that are getting carried over as well as the new ones that we'll be developing. So as part of that, we can take a look at these actions, and if there are some like these that really go hand in hand and they can almost be combined into the same action, we can take a look at that and combine actions that are the same. And that'll be something that we could present at the next meeting, either the next or the one after that, and just get your all of your feedback on it and make sure you're okay with the combination. But that'll just narrow it down so that we don't have as many repeat actions. Next up, we have create extensive buffer zones to keep development out of the floodplain. Use this land to create county parks and open space.
I feel like we had that in our first meeting discussion. We talked about buffers and the sensitivity of buffers currently, but they are being looked at. Teresa, am I remembering that correctly?
Well, I mean, we don't, in our current buffer requirements, floodplain is not a factor, or,
Okay.
you know, special flood hazard area is not a factor. That hasn't been discussed. It's not a bad idea. I don't know, I don't know what the history on this one is.
And
So,
they're good strategies. Like obviously that's that's transferring. Are you thinking that's like it probably was the idea that those buffers, you know, in the floodplain itself helps keep development just out. That's like one mechanism to use is like use buffers.
yes, and that's definitely something we can propose as far as when we're updating our buffer requirements to add floodplain. The special flood hazard area as a protection of that as a reason to maintain buffers. And I love that's great. And it's something we can include in our draft and take it to the commissioners. So we could keep that as an ongoing or, yeah.
Yeah, I like that one too, because then, you know, if the land becomes open space or parks, then it does double duty for passive or active recreation.
Right, we don't currently have a program, a funding program or a green space program to acquire land. So I think that second sentence is something I wouldn't put that in there because we don't have that right now.
This one that I just highlighted?
No, they use this land to create county parks, open space. I mean, we don't have a funding program for that. Like, I love it, but I'm hesitant to say that that's ongoing.
How about consider
Consider, yeah.
using this land?
Yeah. Mhm.
Maybe that gets at that.
Okay, we'll update that in here after this. The next one we have is significant natural and environmental resources exist along the river corridor and need to be protected from development.
That's almost it's almost overlaid with that other, with 61, action 61, the buffer zones. It's the same kind of idea. It's almost, I'm almost wondering if it isn't a GIS exercise also to look at our prime areas, like primary conservation areas, secondary conservation areas, cultural resources, and kind of looking to see where those overlap with, even with floodplains. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Well, the county adopted the Part 5 requirements back in the day, and just looking at right now, protected river corridors, and there is a buffer required. Maybe this is it. Okay, this is a 100-foot buffer required from measured from the riverbank, the uppermost portion of the
Mhm.
riverbank.
As you're saying that, Teresa, I'm remembering that in the Georgia requirements.
So we've
So,
adopted the state basic requirements for their,
right.
Yeah, so this is a state requirement, you said?
yeah, back, I mean, early 2000s, these were known as the Part 5 requirements. There was, floodplain, groundwater recharge, water supply watershed, wetlands, steep slopes. They were a DNR requirement.
Yeah, I remember that. And sometimes it's even having it showing on a map, Teresa, like this, reminding us what we've already committed to. I mean, that is not uncommon. Like,
Yeah,
that's
I like
happening.
that, having a map layer. So that is a really good idea. Let's see, need to be protected, and maybe add a sentence, need to be protected from development, and add a sentence to that statement. About how, let's see, identify with mapping these resources. So just even start it with identify through mapping the significant natural and environmental resource that exists along the river corridor and need to be protected from development. So, and we could reference the code section too.
The
Yep.
only issue with that is knowing what's considered the riverbank is that, we're not having surveys done of that. I have a river center line and I can buffer off of that, but knowing where the bank is gonna be a little difficult.
Okay, good. Thanks, Pam.
We might be able to rough estimate it. Let me think about that one a little, and we can, if you guys do too, because we could probably overlay a general corridor and know that that for any individual projects coming in, we might need to ground truth it, but that is a top of bank thing. I remember having those discussions within DNR. Where is the top of bank?
Yeah,
But I
and that
bet we
gets
can get a
really
general.
complicated with surveyors and who's able to do that kind of work.
Yeah, but even if we have a starting place of, a general area, then we can like literally get down to the individual projects by being out on site when we need to. But at least we have a flag for the areas.
Is it easier to just identify parcels that run coincident with the riverbanks that are protected?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That this could apply on those parcels.
Yeah, that might be easier.
I think the main thing is that we catch we understand that those areas have that requirement, and we catch that when projects are coming through as a practical standpoint.
Yeah, it's always something we can add to the parcel layer and use it as a way to track it in that. Teresa, whatever is easier for your guys and planning and zoning to know that that parcel, has additional requirements for that.
Yeah, that'd be a cool layer to have. I mean, just like we have the National Wetlands Inventory, this would be a good one. So by river, though, are we talking Savannah River, Ogeechee River, and additional minor rivers, or is anything smaller than that considered a stream and therefore they're not part of this?
Yeah, I need to dig back, Teresa, into those requirements in Part 5 and look at the definitions in there.
Okay, actually, yeah, we probably have definitions in the ordinance.
I think the next one is kind of in the same category of what we've been talking about. It's need to protect wetlands and mitigate damage that has already been done. So, at least the wetland protection part.
So in Georgia, there aren't any any protections for non-federal wetlands except in the coastal zone or areas that are following the stormwater guidance in the coastal stormwater supplement that I know of. Teresa, do you, so they're special, those fall in the special protection areas under the using the coastal stormwater supplement as to guide the stormwater management for new projects? Those
You
are,
know what? I'm not sure what you're asking exactly. So we need to
I'm
protect
thinking
wetlands.
about, yeah, I'm so sorry. I was gonna say that I was thinking about like what protections already exist for wetlands. One layer is the federal protections that exist for waters of the United States that are also waters of the state of Georgia. But for ones that are isolated, the only protections that I know about are in the stormwater management requirements for areas that have an MS4 designation, do their own review. If they have to adhere to the coastal stormwater supplement, there are wetlands protections in that guidance.
Okay, so only at this time, only very, very small slivers of land in the south end of the county are MS4, and with new census numbers that we're still waiting to get the actual new boundary. I haven't seen it. I don't know that it's been distributed yet. So, because that affects our MPO, core MPO participation as well, what part of the counties are covered. So I can't answer that. We have wetlands protection ordinance, and again, it's most likely the state model rather than anything other than
Okay.
that. The state model would probably know more than that.
Okay, maybe that's something that we could look at just generally, because that is that like looking at this just stormwater standards. Maybe the coastal stormwater supplement right now is a guidance document. I don't know the state model wetlands ordinance right off the bat, but that could be an area that we could look at to just the protection of other than federal, because so the federal ones will have a layer of protection that just all that means is that they can't be filled without a permit. It doesn't mean they can't be filled. It means just they can't be filled without a permit, which, you know, the disincentive to filling wetlands is the cost to mitigate, you know, to replace the functions and values of those wetlands. Like, just to give an idea for people that may not know, like a 1 acre wetland will store 1 million gallons of water. So when we start losing wetland function, you know, as they're being filled for development, it creates quite a problem down the road. So to the extent that we can head that off and think about measures and actions that could take place, that's kind of where like the stuff that we're talking about, like what mechanisms exist right now to protect those functions, and what could we beef up or look at including, like adopting the standards of the coastal stormwater supplement that would pick up those non-tidal freshwater wetlands that could be large enough that they do influence amounts of water that are stored, but may not receive those federal protections right now. That's a possibility. Teresa, I just don't know the state wetlands model right now, but I'm guessing, just knowing a little bit about wetlands management in the state of Georgia, that it's probably the federal ones probably overlap with the ones that are protected. Because I think there's not a protection for isolated wetlands. Or federally excluded is like the new nomenclature in wetlands management right now.
So is this something that we would want to include as ongoing and maybe look into updating the wetlands protection ordinance in the future?
It actually could overlap with even looking at the stormwater standards too, to see if we could apply the coastal stormwater supplement. I don't know, Teresa, what are your thoughts to like explore that one a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, that can be, I don't know if ongoing, because I don't know that I'm not sure if we can justify ongoing, deferred / ongoing. I'm not sure of the answer. We don't, for any development in wetlands area that we identify using the National Wetlands Inventory, we require a permit from the Corps or delineation to ensure that it's not in the protected wetlands. So, that's the extent really of my side of it, at least. So that we do protect wetlands in that regard, but there was a period where, isolated wetlands were permitted to be filled. And I guess we're out of that period. But mitigate damage, I'm not sure. That's not a county. The county wouldn't require that. We would defer to the Corps of Engineers for any mitigation requirements.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about the wetlands issues, but when a lot of these new developments are coming in, do you know, Teresa, if they're showing, are the plans sets showing wetland impacts that are other than federal? Are they, I mean, they should be identifying isolated and federally protected.
Yeah, at almost
wetlands.
every stage. I mean, even at some, depending on kind of the sophistication of, the applicant, it's even as early as rezoning, we might have a delineation, but certainly by the time we're accepting the first land disturbance plans, the plans for land disturbance, they should have a delineation, and the permit should be underway. So we should be seeing those on every piece, every plan, every plat, everything that along the way.
Okay. So most local governments don't feel like they've got the authority to regulate wetlands. And Georgia is actually home rule. So one of those ways is that when we were working with the coastal, well, like the 26 counties that front the coast of Georgia, we developed those stormwater standards within the coastal stormwater supplement to be able to offer protections through the stormwater management program within that supplement. So that is one way, Teresa, at getting, like, looking a little more closely. I know you're not like, it's like a level of discomfort with saying that we're willing to talk, like willing to put that down on paper right now, but maybe that's a discussion, because I don't know, it'd be nice to see a map of the extent of isolated wetlands versus federal, but even that, just generally for other people to know, like that's been in the court system on and off, for years. But where it's left is, right now, the waters of the United States definition is being expanded back to what the Corps had been regulating previously. But that for states and localities that have not ever stepped in to protect those other wetlands that don't have the federal protections. Other ways at getting at that, such as through our stormwater and wetlands protection ordinances, are other ways to manage those resources to protect the flood functions that wetlands provide. So it might be worth just looking a little bit more deeply into the wetland stuff, into the ordinance and into the stormwater management standards. That's another thing that's happening, is just generally a lot of communities are working on their stormwater um, guidelines and design standards to improve the functionality to accept waters, like just to see what they can do to improve that intersection with land use and future development that's coming, to see if there aren't some other design standards that would help protect the existing structures and community that's in place while new development's happening. That's really ramping up in many states and areas and communities. Okay, we can probably go to the next one. Sorry. Thank you guys for putting up with the wetland stuff. It's a huge topic and one of the main areas where we could make some strides in hazard mitigation planning.
Yeah, definitely. Just to kind of jump back to the status, did we want to leave that blank for now and look into it a little bit more, or are you comfortable adding a status?
I'm not comfortable with the mitigate damage that has already been done, because that, I don't know that the county, that's not something.
Maybe the
Okay.
word mitigate's the wrong word. Because that connotes a legal mitigation versus a verb that describes kind of moving into the future and thinking about ways to improve our resiliency in areas that have already had a lot of development around floodplains. Like, could we look at stacked BMPs and things like that, or an overlay that helps protect areas that are flood prone? I think that could mean different things. So maybe mitigate's the wrong verb, because
Yeah, and
it definitely carries a legal connotation.
so, I mean, we could almost tie this into the stormwater master plan, right? Where we're talking a little bit more broadly about just stormwater and not necessarily like directly protecting wetlands and mitigating damage, but like rewording this to group it in with the stormwater actions that we had. Would you rather do something like that?
So that sits in a resource action, right? Too, like the wetland portion. But go ahead, Teresa. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that came from, and we've had a gap in staff since that time. I don't know what was the plan, so I don't know what to say, but I don't think leaving this appearance that the county is going to mitigate damage or take responsibility for requiring mitigation. I don't think that's a good idea, because we've got nothing to back it up. So if we have a concerned citizen who points that out to us and asks what we're doing, then I've got nothing. So I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
Maybe we could take a stab at rewording it.
Yeah, I think I'll leave this highlighted for now. We can take a look at it, see if there's a way that we can integrate it into a different action, or just reword it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later on once we've done that. So our next one is use stream restoration to ensure adequate drainage and diversion of stormwater. Should I update that as ongoing and add in the information about the stormwater master plan that we've included in previous?
That's out of my scope. I don't know if Kristen has something.
So that could also be considered stormwater. There's been a big effort to look at stream function, and as we're designing stormwater, is there a chance to restore streams that have been degraded, or the way we've channelized things? They're even terming it regenerative stormwater management, because it's using nature-based techniques to do stream restoration that is more compatible with accepting and improving capacity of the waters and flow in a more natural setting. So that could be like the use of nature-based techniques even. That's like a green infrastructure bent to stormwater management. Who is a stormwater person for the county?
I'm going to say that's our public works, so Kristen might be able to answer that.
Okay.
UOM handles the maintenance.
Thomas and Hunt, now the Savannah office. Now, Thomas and Hutton did participate on that coastal stormwater supplement, Teresa. They were on there, doing the more of an LID and a green infrastructure approach to integrate that with standard gray types. And pond, okay.
Okay. Okay.
Stick a little note in there, Lindsay, about Thomas and Hutton. Just I'll know what it means. Thank you.
Next up, we have implement road and drainage improvements program. They want to manage. Kristen, Thomas and Hutton will be handling the managing the CIP projects. Okay. Okay, great. So implement road and drainage improvement program was deferred in 2017.
That's another really super common stormwater management strategy that you look at that. It may cross over with DOT and DOT's maintenance. That might be worth looking a little further into.
Oh yeah, so they're doing the transportation study.
Thank you,
And-
Kristen.
Yeah.
Yep, was lost. Okay. So, Kristen, is there a good Thomas and Hutton contact? I know some of them still.
Hey, so Ryan Thompson and Lauren Davenport are the two main ones that we've been speaking to, as well as Kevin Smith. But like I said, this agreement was just approved last night, and they are going to be handling the capital improvement projects. So I don't know how much they'd be able to assist with this right now, or what information they would have already, because we haven't even like had the kickoff or fully implemented what exactly they would be doing. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it would just be like, I think even letting them know that we're working on this
Mhm.
would be a good, like, if you could liaise a little bit. So we start connecting the actions and activities that are happening, because these are a lot of great things you've got going on for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to double check. I'm cautious with the scope of what we've approved in their agreement. I don't want to rope
Yeah.
in more than what we've kind of already got going, especially when we already have other people, like EOM handles a lot, and the other engineers that are working on project specific things. So I just kind of want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
blurring that scope.
Is Thomas and Hutton taking over that responsibility for someone else?
We had Eric Larson on staff as the assistant
Okay.
county manager and the county engineer.
Yep.
So they're kind of acting as our county engineer liaison on some of these capital projects.
Okay. Okay, yep. Yeah, Eric does that for Liberty County. He's their engineer for Liberty too, right?
No, I don't think that's the same person.
Oh, also called Eric Larson. That's very interesting.
Oh,
Thank
I don't
you.
remember. He's in
Okay.
South Carolina now, so I'm not
Oh,
sure.
all right. Maybe I've run across him there. That's why his name sounds so familiar in
Maybe.
here in South Carolina. Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So we did have one that was educate citizens about GIS hazard mapping online services, and somebody had added a comment earlier saying that was ongoing. So I'm gonna enter that in and keep going unless anyone else has something else that they wanted to add to that. The next one on here is develop a program to increase public awareness of wetland and flood zone sensitivity. New action of 2017.
This is Teresa. That could be part of our effort to expand the categories where we achieve points for the CRS, or at least to just enhance our public outreach. And I mean, we meet program requirements now to maintain 7. We'd love to expand our activities. We just really haven't been able to. So as far as public awareness, the county has a public information officer. He's a conduit and is willing to work with us. And this might be really simple in the sense if we know what material we should be disseminating, we've got a way to do that. So identify, develop a program. I would say that could be an ongoing.
Awesome. We have publicized a user-friendly, publicly available repository for inquirers to obtain flood insurance rate maps.
Oh man, I will tell you, DNR hosts Georgia DFirm, and that is the most awesome portal for. We use it. We have all the maps, but this is, you just plug in an address. It gives you a template, and it's just really wonderful. And even if you don't have an address, it's a really user-friendly map. So we can publicize that on our website, yes, but it's not something we host. It's Georgia DFirm, and it's a really great resource.
Okay,
but
great.
We also have digital and hard copy flood insurance rate maps in our office. But not through our website. But we can link the DFirm. I don't know that we have linked that, but we can.
Yeah, Teresa, I don't think it's on there right now, but if you email me the link, I can put it on there.
Yeah, that's a simple fix. We know exactly, because we have pages dedicated to our flood prevention programs, so we can just stick that in there.
Just add that, yeah. So it's not quite completed like as of right now, but if that's something that you think you can easily do, we could just say it's completed, as long as that's done before the time the plan's submitted.
I'll provide the link, and if Pamela can, give us an ETA, yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
I can have it done by the end of the week.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome.
Check that off.
Checked one off. So next up, we have develop a buyer beware checklist or program.
Oh. Wow, I wonder what we're bewaring exactly.
I wonder if that's even working with like real estate interest in better publicizing.
The objective it was associated with was to minimize losses to, and this was the original objectives from your previous plan, but it was minimize losses to existing and future structures, especially critical facilities in low-lying areas of the county due to flooding. So, it's almost might be saying like providing this flood map that's easily accessible. Checklist, it seems like there's a little bit more to it than that, but.
Right, checklist is scary. Program, sure, buyer beware. Because we can do a flyer that, I'd say a cautionary. I hate the buyer beware. It seems to give us liability, but a cautionary kind of notes on developing in the floodplain or in a special flood hazard area. We can do that. We've just started generating flyers on our more common kind of activities, and we can certainly add a new one on notes for the individual who's hoping to buy or build in the special flood hazard area. I don't know about buyer beware.
I agree. The language is a little I don't know, inflammatory or something.
It
That's-
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
so we can reword that one. I put down create a cautionary flyer about buying or developing in flood zone. And we can kind of further reword that, but yeah, gets it a little bit out of the buyer beware. So then with that, kind of looking at the new action, would we want to put that as ongoing?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something we are doing. We've just really started developing these brochures, and we're always looking for, just as long as we take buyer beware out of it.
Yeah.
But how to develop, so you're thinking of developing in the special flood hazard area. That's kind of the tone we're taking. So you're thinking of building a house. And so it's, friendly, helpful advice is what we're doing, but I don't think we want to do a buyer beware.
Yeah. Let's see. Flood-proof wastewater treatment facilities located in the flood hazard areas. Any update on that? It was new in 2017.
I know in South Carolina, we're working on a suite of strategies for existing wastewater and water facilities to help safeguard. Maybe that's something that it could just be considered ongoing. Sort of a vulnerability. It's almost actions related to like to mitigate or to protect from a like a vulnerability standpoint. Like we don't want to have situation where we've got backed up sewage and flowing and we don't have good water.
Yeah, so I guess I can put that as ongoing unless somebody can verify if it was completed.
Maybe that's
There's
a
a current
utilities.
project for wastewater treatment plant upgrades in Effingham. I cannot confirm that this specifically has been discussed, but can ask. Kristen, that would be awesome if you could check on that. I'm gonna put this as ongoing, and then I'm gonna add a note, and I can follow up with you after. And if you get any more information, we can add it in here. Encourage residents in flood-prone areas to elevate homes.
That's a really general statement, and it's one way to describe what we do, but that's, I think, a dangerous kind of statement. I mean, we have requirements, and they have, if new home builders have, new construction in the special flood hazard area has to meet ordinance requirements, and if it involves elevation, it involves elevation, but that's a really general, unhelpful sort of statement, I think.
Is that something that you think would be, oh, sorry, Clint, go ahead.
I think the reason that was put in there was for the possibility of some grant funding in the future. With that being said, we've had discussions with GMA, and right now there's really nobody in the county that falls under that perpetual loss situation from flooding. So
Right, we have a single repetitive loss structure, and I don't know that it was ever replaced, but we have to send notification letters every year to all the surrounding properties, but it's one and it's years old, so it has not been an issue. But thanks, Clint, for clarifying that.
So one other thing that we've got to think about too is that this plan, unlike the last plan, has to consider climate change. So we also want to think about future conditions, and maybe Teresa, that's just a general educational element.
Okay.
Possibly the elevation piece could be maybe that is it in the education, some of the education initiatives that we've been talking about?
Well, if we're going to encourage people to elevate, then also to obtain flood insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to be in a flood prone area. Everyone should consider flood insurance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So
Mhm.
So it could be
That's-
more of like an education, like educate residents on flood hazards and actions they can take to mitigate hazards.
Yes, that's great.
But Lindsay, that specific NFIP point that Teresa just brought up is even more specific than just that general education. Like that's almost it's almost a new action. It's like gets us back to the community rating probably too. That's like, we may just make a note for when we're thinking of new actions.
Okay, and we
A
can
really
we can
good
come
point,
back to
Teresa.
that one because that may end up getting grouped in with something else or reworded. So I'll leave that one as is for now with these notes. We have develop a dam failure study and emergency action plan. Do you know if that was done?
We don't have, being that we don't have any class 1 dams in the county. This one really isn't, I don't think this one's really applicable.
So how about impoundments, Clint? Like, like I'm just thinking about for emergency operations that there's a notification process. A lot of times if a big stormwater pond could fail and things
Yeah,
like that,
they
even
would,
large impoundments.
in that
maybe
situation,
they're
they
not
would
class 1
notify
dam.
us and we would notify the state as well. But as far as an actual study on one, no, that
Yeah.
hasn't been done.
Because there aren't any that are required. So do you think this one would just be deleted?
I think so.
Okay. And then the next one is to implement an inspection, maintenance, and enforcement program to help ensure continued structural integrity of dams and levees.
I think, I'll be honest, I think that one needs to be deleted as well because I did some research and read into it, and they have to follow state guidance on this. And it specifically says what the actions you have to take in the event that you think something isn't correct, and it doesn't fall under our jurisdiction.
Okay. Participate with regional hazmat team.
This one probably needs to be reworded a little bit because we do have a regional team. The city of Savannah maintains the big hazmat team, but with that being said, we do have a local team that is under Effingham Fire, and we handle the majority of stuff in the county, but every few years there'll be something we have to request a little bit of assistance with.
Okay. So do you think rewording, like, I mean, it kind of seems like it's already something that you're doing.
Correct.
So would you want to keep it as ongoing or just remove it because it's not really?
I would remove it.
Okay. Seek training for first responders, fire, police, sheriff, EMS, and 911.
That's continuing.
Increase public awareness of public address system, and I think we covered this one before, and procedures to follow if a hazardous material spill event occurs by publishing articles. Okay, this has multiple parts to it. By publishing articles in the local newspaper, the EMA website, and providing bulletins to local churches.
So that's like the emergency management system.
Yeah, that would be a mass notification.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of that one needs to be changed a little.
Yeah.
Because we don't readily provide information to bulletins at local churches. We do provide information through social media, our websites, through the news in case of the spill or a hazardous material event. Newspaper would be too slow of a process. It needs, in the event of a spill, it's more of an immediate issue. And at that time, it would, depending on what the material is, would dictate what we tell the public to do, whether it's shelter or evacuate or avoid the area.
Okay.
Lindsay, do we want to switch back to the timeline? We only have a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
We'll pick this back up.
Yeah,
This
it
was really
looks
good.
like we have about 10 or 15 left. So we can just, I mean, if anybody wants to go in and add any more notes that I didn't pick up during our conversation, or if you just want to go through and keep adding the statuses for these last few, that would be great. If not, we can just take a few minutes at the beginning of the next meeting and wrap these up. But since we have a few.
If y'all got time, I'd rather just try to knock them out.
Okay, yeah, that works for me. And if anybody has to jump off, then I may just jump into the timeline really quickly in case anybody needs to leave. And then we can just go back in and finish these. So give me 1 second while I just switch over. All right, so if anybody has to head out, I just wanted to go over the timeline really quickly. So you'll see that we're about halfway through our planned meetings, and the next few meetings are going to be really important as we start to develop new mitigation actions to be included in the 2023 hazard mitigation plan. So this is going to be kind of looking at the actions that were in the last plan that we've been reviewing. We're going to be creating additional actions to add into the plan that are going to be similar to these, but new actions. So the meeting's going to be really interactive. We're going to be looking for ideas from everyone. They're going to be referenced by cities in the county over the next 5 years as they continue to pursue hazard mitigation efforts. So it's really important that we have reps from various areas of both the county and the cities in order to gather as much information as we can. So if there's anybody who hasn't been present at these meetings but you think would have some really good information, definitely forward the invitation along or send me their email address and I can send it along. Going forward, we're also going to be working on a project webpage that will include specific information on the project, and it will allow for community members to respond to a survey and provide their input. The website is probably going to be online late February, but we do not have an exact date yet as we're still putting it together. And a few last housekeeping things. We're still looking for last feedback on critical facilities. We're going to have to put that into GMIS and start looking at your risks. So if there are any other edits that people need to add, I have received a few emails in the past couple of days that I just need to incorporate. But if there are any other edits, if people could get in there, it's in the Google folder that we've been looking at. If you could just get in and update that by the end of the week, that would be great. And that's kind of it for our presentation. And I'm going to jump back over to the mitigation measures. If anybody is able to stay on and continue going through these, that would be great. And if you have to hop off, we understand, and we will see you in 2 weeks at the next meeting. Okay. So back to this. Our next action that we have is ensure that city and county emergency responders have adequate equipment and training for hazmat incidents.
That's ongoing.
In this case, I can't speak on behalf of the cities, well, I take that back. There's only one city that would provide this, which is Rankin. But I know within the county, while it's ongoing, it is provided.
Okay.
And I'm almost certain it is for the county. I mean, this one of the cities as well, but again, I can't speak on their behalf.
Okay. Do you know if there
Rankin,
is?
right?
Correct.
Is
Okay.
there anybody from Rankin or any of the cities here today?
Haven't seen them.
Springfield or Dayton. Okay.
We're
We may
planning
need to
to,
make a special call.
yeah, I think we're gonna do some reach out to certain people, and Clint, we can talk to you later about who those people would be, and we can just do some like smaller group meetings to make sure that everything is getting captured to include the cities as well. We have train local government officials on proper enactment procedures for hazardous material spill events.
I don't know that that's, when I say completely applicable, a lot of that is going to be more of a all hazards type event, like a hazmat spill versus some other disaster. Isn't going to be tremendously different, because that really just comes into play for your continuity of operations more than anything.
Okay. So is it currently provided for like an all hazard response?
To a degree, but it could certainly be improved.
Okay.
Lindsay, there's a typo in that government under the action.
Oh,
It's
okay.
GIV instead of G.
And we have review annually all hazardous materials transportation routes, relocate routes if necessary.
This is ongoing, but they really don't change very frequently.
Seek funding for a public warning system for high population density areas.
Well, we've got one that we're implementing for mass notification, so I think this would actually fall underneath that.
So add that as completed? Or is it still ongoing?
I mean, it's
Ongoing. It
going
has
to
not
be
lapsed.
always ongoing.
Yeah, okay. Coordinate is that hazard mitigation planning with new turpentine facility?
We meet with them and speak to them at least annually. And it's not just them, it's also some of our other large industries.
Maybe that one's a rewording, so not just a turpentine facility, but also other industrial. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
great.
Seek funding to provide radiation detection devices to emergency responders.
I think this one can be deleted.
Okay. Seek government training and updates on current policies and procedures regarding safety readiness.
Government training. I don't necessarily think it needs to be government training, like just training and updates,
Okay.
and that's ongoing.
Seek funding to remove vegetative obstructions from the rivers within Effingham County.
I'm probably gonna have to.
That's a DNR question.
Yeah, that's not really.
Yeah, so that's a that's a totally loaded thing, like, because it's also, like, that's a controversial topic because of the old wood logs that are in some of the river systems. That
And
one's
not
gotta
just
be.
that, just if you start removing stuff, you can change the velocity of the water
Oh,
as
yeah.
it moves.
Most definitely. That's almost a stormwater thing too, and at one standpoint. the modeling and velocities that we've talked about before. Yeah.
So do you think deleting that one?
It could also be like beaver activity. So that could mean a lot of different things.
It could. But it says within the river, so yeah, that would need to be deleted.
Okay. Encourage landowners to remove vegetative obstructions. So yeah, this is specific. It was under the objective of protect human life, health, and property of residents from contaminants in the waterways. So this is to encourage landowners to remove vegetative obstructions from waterways.
That's very generic.
Stormwater management usually handles sending out something about making sure you're not planting in ditches. And not burning in ditches. And then the county public works handles pulling ditches to make sure they're draining properly. So it wouldn't necessarily back up hazardous contaminants, maybe.
Yeah, that was an interesting, like that. It's almost like it's a flood related Hannah like statement.
Yeah.
Part of the MS4 does include education postings in various areas.
Yeah, good point, Kristen.
So just keep that as ongoing since it's part of the MS4. You typically do websites, newspapers, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
That would apply to that lower part of the county with the that we talked about earlier, the slivers, the county where there's an MS4.
Increase public awareness of the pollutants that are present in the rivers and the impact they have on health in the ecosystem.
Also MS4.
Yeah, and we provide signage if we have a pollutant in the river. We've done that previously.
Okay.
We'll usually post something at river landings and the boat launches.
Yeah, especially if there's like no swimming and stuff. Yeah.
Or don't eat the fish.
Yeah, fish advisories.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and so the education is countywide too. So,
this next one needs to be deleted. That's not in our scope.
Okay. Work with the EPA and GAEPV to classify is that Ogeechee? Is that how you say that?
Ogeechee, yes.
It is Ogeechee. So the scenic river designation would it ramp up the stormwater standards? It would limit and protect the area along the Ogeechee with a scenic river designation. That's why that's in there, I think.
Is that something that is really like, is there much that's done on the county level to classify it?
I'm gonna have to defer that question maybe to somebody else because
I don't necessarily think
I haven't heard any intent on this in all.
That typically is, we usually have a representative when we have the public meetings that are part of the Ogeechee Riverkeeper group. They are partially more responsible for that as a public group, trying to get certain waterways designated like that for public use.
Yeah, like the Riverkeeper.
Yeah. We have the Savannah Riverkeeper and the Ogeechee Riverkeeper. and some private or club groups that is more in their realm than ours as a government.
Okay. Is that something that you would want to remove from here? Or-
Before we remove it, let's see if there's any public input.
Okay. Increased public awareness of the different scenic river classifications and impacts of each category.
I think that's going to be the same as the one before it.
Yeah.
Need to remediate water pollution in rivers, streams, and ponds.
I think that's a very dangerous.
That's an EPD issue.
Yeah.
That's just so that is a very broad way to look at non-point source pollution, which like land use, the way we have like the improvements to the subdivision zoning that's happening. Those are little ways to get at reducing non-point source pollution generally. I think that could just be rewarded a bit. I think that's a good one to think about. That if that's a general catch-all statement, that I think we could really, I don't think that we can influence industrial discharges, but certainly the way we develop and the way we manage land affects how those water bodies receive pollutant loading. So I mean, those are activities that you all are already working on.
Yeah, I guess that also works into like discharge issues with our wastewater treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But the word that I have a little bit of heartburn with is the remediate.
The word again, the verb.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a little bit of heartburn with that.
Okay. We'll reword this, get rid of remediate and
follow ordinances to comply with state discharge, something like that. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. So those are that's a good point for industrial discharges.
Yeah.
Which includes the wastewater. But there are lots of things that are happening right now currently that you're working on to reduce non-point source pollution. That is the leading cause of water quality degradation.
okay, so we'll add that as ongoing, but then we're gonna reword it so it's not gonna be quite the same action. And that is the end of the list. So we made it through all 90.
Wow, congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for sticking on with us for this.
Okay, so this is the version on the Google Drive that you want us to go in and edit, or was I've been very deficient. I'm sorry, but we've just been.
Oh yeah, that's okay. So yeah, this is what the Google Drive looks like right now. So
yeah,
we were
got
just
it open. I just want to make sure this is what.
Yeah, so this is the 2017 mitigation measures.
Okay.
This is a document that we had asked you to update, but now that we've gone through it together, we're all set on that. The two things that we do need updated is the asset inventory, and I've been getting feedback throughout the past couple weeks, and I do have one last email that I received yesterday that I need to incorporate in here. But that we really just need to go through, confirm the facilities. Hopefully by the end of the week, if there's any new facilities that you want to add to the list or any addresses that still need to be changed, it would be great if we could get that done this week, because the next step on this is adding the assets back into GMIS, and then we start to look at the hazard profiles for each of the assets. So updating the asset inventory and then the capabilities assessment. We also went through at the first meeting. I think there was a few things in there that we talked about updating later. So I'll open that up quickly. There, yeah, we made some edits, but if you can just go through it again and make sure everything looks good, this will be in your final plan. So we just want to make sure we're capturing everything. The last document that's in here is the goals and objectives crosswalk, and that's what Anna presented on earlier. And we're hoping on this one you can go in. It includes all of the actions that were from your last plan. Keep in mind some of these we are deleting based off of our conversation today and going through the actions, but these are reclassified within goals and objectives, the new structure of goals and objectives. So if you can go in, take a look at those, see if it makes sense to you, and then really just start brainstorming new actions that you're going to want to include, because that's what we're going to spend time on at the next meeting in 2 weeks, is really developing new actions that we want to add into the plan. So just start thinking about it.
Yeah, Teresa, if you want to go back into the document we were just, that was the first document, correct, Lindsay? If Teresa or others, Kristen, like where we had homework assignments?
Yeah, yep, that was the 2017 mitigation measures.
Or even ideas, if you want to just look back through them and sort of see how they group together, see the comments that we wrote and think about wording, that's great.
All right, will do.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all so much. I will send a follow-up email. I can send around the presentation so you all have it. And if you have any questions, reach out to one of us and we can get that answered for you. And we're looking forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.